So hello, welcome back to the Friday Charter. Well, we did part one a couple of weeks ago on Trainton World 5 on the run from London Euston to just beyond Milton Keynes, and in part two we're going to carry on through to Birmingham New Street, calling at Birmingham International. I was going to do part two last week actually, but the sleeper pack got in the way. Well, actually the Class 92 pack, and got the Mark 5s as well. So we move on to part two this week, and we are actually on the move, so let's unpause the game and carry on. We are in the Armstrong Powerhouse Class 87, and it looks very fine too. So again, the right train, the right formation. Of course, because we've got the Armstrong Powerhouse pack, we do have the, well, can we call it a Class 82, but the DVT anyway at the back. So we are well and truly on our way. Now we are limited to 110. I think we have just gone through a neutral section actually, so we just need to kind of reset the power a little bit. Wolverton is the only station between here and Rugby, unless you're going off on the Northampton Loop line, of course. And Wolverton home to the Royal Train. So thanks to Jonathan Simmons, who's provided this scenario, and this is available on Alan Thompson Simulation. So he says, drive the Locomotive Services Ltd Friday Charter on the 26th of August 2022 from Euston to Birmingham New Street. So I've async keysed it from Milton Keynes because of course I did the part one in Trainton World 5. Just the one stop at Birmingham International on our way to Birmingham New Street. So I think with the vegetation pack, with the Class 87 from Armstrong Powerhouse, all in all it's a damn good looking train. And I think it's fabulous to actually run this service that operated in real life only just that couple of years or so ago. And it's kind of mixing the old and the new, because thoroughly remember the Class 87 in active service, but it's kind of good to be able to do it on this sort of rail toury type service. Just a shame it wasn't more popular. It might have run a few more weeks and months for the remainder of 2022. And they just didn't quite get the pricing right. It was a collaboration, as I mentioned in part one, with Avanti as well. As always, when you kind of do those cutaway things, you end up speeding slightly. But we do have a neutral section coming up, so we have to probably lose a bit of power actually in preparation. So that will get us down to below 110. hope you watched part 1 of the video, and I've put a link in the description just in case. And thanks again to all the lovely people who've subscribed to the channel. And if you haven't subscribed already, and you're enjoying these videos and you've enjoyed the videos on the channel, then please like and subscribe. I'm always tremendously grateful. And we're heading towards hopefully the 500 subscriber mark, and when we get there I'm planning on doing for one of the live streams a full run in the Piccadilly from London Euston through to Glasgow Central. So if you can help me to get there, then it'll come all the quicker. Hoping that's going to be in the next couple of weeks, really. Though I do need to get out and record the introduction, so I've got a little idea planned for that. So we're still very much a 4-track West Coast main line, and very soon, well, you can see the bit here where it disappears down below us, and we have that little section, famous section that diverts away to Northampton. And it's great that we have the Northampton loop represented in the game as well now. The Armstrong Powerhouse weather in as well, because it was set in Cuju when I downloaded it, so it looked a bit glum. And it's amazing the difference to Train Sim Classic that the Armstrong Powerhouse weather actually looks. And apologies if you think I kind of bang on a bit about Armstrong Powerhouse stuff, but does make such a difference though, and I think anything that kind of improves the look of the game is only a good thing, really. So I'm hoping the idea is that the first part was about 40 odd minutes, and then this section should be round about the same to take us through to Birmingham New Street. Then in part 3 we'll be taking on Birmingham New Street through to Crewe. Now I'm hoping also that there'll be a part 4. We haven't got the Crewe to Wilmslow section, but when the Alan Thompson simulation Manchester commuter route's finally released, it'll give us the chance to do Wilmslow to Manchester Piccadilly. I was hoping there was going to be a bit of news about that with the February release of the roadmap for Train Sim World, but nothing, and in fact it's been postponed by the looks of it. It's now saying beyond 3 months, so not sure what the full story is. But it's kind of a bit disappointing, because back in November I think it was on the 0 to 3 months, so it seems as though there's definitely been some sort of delay. There's been 1 or 2 comments on the forum speculating, well, 1 or 2 more informed views than speculation actually, because one of the members of the team that was building the route was on, but I'm not going to kind of delve exactly into what was said. One of those rare moments where we go northbound and we don't stop at Rugby. I guarantee you when I do the Euston to Rugby route, we will be, Euston to Glasgow Central full run, we will definitely be stopping at Rugby, because we'll need to gain access to the Trent Valley line. And I've said it before, it's obviously we would love to see greater extended routes for Trainsim World 5, and you know, I'd be the biggest advocate of that because of the 24-hour timetable. But on the other hand, I think it's great that we still have Trainsim Classic where we can extend some of these runs. Tunnel there, but we have got the longer tunnel coming up at Kilsby, which is an absolute gigantic one, to the extent that there's kind of air ventilation shafts in the middle. I think that was mainly because of the thought of steam trains going through when it was first built. We're entering that section now where the M1 motorway will come in. We'll have Watford Gap services ultimately. You've kind of got the railway line, you've got the canal, you've got the M1 motorway all in that little gap in the hills, hence Watford Gap. If you've watched a couple of the videos before where I've covered this line, I've always reminded people that there's a little village called Watford in this area. It's nothing to do with the Watford that we all know and love further south in the line. I mean, you can't imagine them changing the name now really, but to my mind it was a rather silly name to give it because of the confusion. I'm sure many people have stopped at Watford Gap services over the years and have thought, but it's nowhere near Watford. Forgetting it's F3 to get rid of the menu on Trainsim Classic. That wasn't a very good place to pick, was it? That's better. The thing about, I mean, this is LSL operates under the Intercity brand name, and they have a website advertising all their upcoming scenarios. I think he trains them there onto their upcoming rail tours, and they operate this basically all first class Mark III set. You don't quite get the full dining experience though, because they've only got limited buffet car. I think they are apparently building or sort of modifying an old restaurant car from the Pretendolino set, so maybe we will get proper kitchen facilities on a Mark III rake again from these people. So here we are alongside the M1 now. Fairly quiet at the moment, has to be said. Particularly bearing in mind this is supposed to be a Friday night. Kind of got the services there. Always pleases me to see the fact that there is services on the southbound side as well. That's kind of a little detail that could very easily have been missed. There were, of course, 36 of these Class 87s built, starting in the early 1970s. They were basically built for, this is the Kilsby Tunnel I was on about, they were built for the electrification of the northern part of the West Coast Main Line, so north of Weaver Junction, Liverpool branch, to take you right the way through to Glasgow Central. And all but one were built with conventional tap changer system, which of course was a throwback to the early electrics, the 81s to the 86s. Now the final 87 that was built, 87-101, named Stevenson, and that had a, they called it a, I don't know if you pronounce it thristor or thyristor, but it had a new control system which meant that you no longer had to notch up. Of course, that carried on through to the 90s and onwards, really. It seems an old system to use, this notching up, but of course it was necessary when they built the first electrics in the 60s originally. Apologies for the you saw the Pendolino pack going through there. There's a couple of variations. Oh, here's the neutral section again. There's a couple of improvements to the original Dovetail Games one. One's by Major Wales, and there's another one on Alan Thompson's sim, and there's a little bit of a crossover between the two. So for some reason, one of the carriages I've got on the rake at the moment is kind of bearing a look of Virgin, but still having the Avanti West Coast logo on. In some ways, I quite like it. So you can see the Northampton line rejoining us from the right. Must have another go up the Northampton loop. I've only actually driven a couple of trains on there. That was on the stream many months ago. Labyrinth of lines here. You've got the freight liner going over us as we hurtle through Rugby Station. Of course, if we carried on straight on, we'd be going up the Trent Valley line and heading towards Nuneaton and Stafford. Another advance warning there of the neutral section coming up. But as we turn left, we're going towards the more congested part of the line, towards Birmingham International and Birmingham New Street. I mean, even as long ago as the West Coast Main Line was first built, it was obvious to the route builders that having all the main traffic going straight through Birmingham wasn't a great idea, and that was tremendous foresightedness, really, when you think about it. Might have been a bit too quick to supply power, but no, I think we are slowly getting up. You do lose a bit after these neutral sections. And also it'd be fairly rare for services to actually go straight through Coventry as well and not stop. So literally the stopping pattern is Birmingham International, Birmingham New Street, Wolverhampton, Stafford, Crewe and Wilmslow, and then Manchester Piccadilly, I think I'm right in saying. Just a small correction as well to the first part, because I started that out at 1727. Now, I was using some reference material, and I think the original plan was to set this service going at 1727, but when they actually put it into service, it was actually 1742. Again, we've got the right livery, 87002 Royal Sovereign. As well as looking forward to the Manchester commuter route for Trainson World 5 whenever it comes out. Surely that's going to be 2025, isn't it, at some point? But I would love the section between Crewe and Wilmslow as well. And every time I do a run on the West Coast Main Line, I'll always say this, but please, 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 Kidsgrove to Stockport via Macclesfield. Which, if you know your line, that's Kidsgrove, Congleton, Macclesfield, Prestbury, Adlington, Poynton, Bramwell, Chiddlehume and Stockport. Of course, Levenshulme and Heaton Chapel in between as well. Heaton Chapel and Levenshulme to be in the right order before Manchester Piccadilly. Got a little bit of leeway, I think, at Birmingham International, so hopefully we'll be okay time-wise. Again, there's no stations between Rugby and Coventry. We've got the Leamington Spa branch that goes on to Banbury just before Coventry Station. That's another section that's woefully missing in train sim in any description, because that would enable the cross-country trains that go that way. You kind of go Leamington Spa, Banbury, Oxford, Reading. I think the fact that we've got the 75-mile-an-hour speed limit coming in soon, there's the marker for it. Very much tells us that Coventry will be going through soon. just takes a little while for those brakes to reset, so judge that reasonably well, I think. That's the Leamington Spa branch just coming in. Oh, a lovely Class 70 there. And I do know that the scenario creators very carefully tried to lay all the traffic down as it was on this particular date. This is very specific. It's the 26th of August 2022. And again, just to kind of convey the accuracy, because it wasn't always the 87, they used the 90 as well. Not sure that they ever quite used the 86, because I don't think it was actually available at that time. Happy to be corrected on that. I know that there is on Alan Thompson Simulation already a version 3 or part 3, but we need to swap the 90 for the 87. So first station out of Coventry is Canley. I think it's quite an interesting section actually between, well, particularly between Birmingham New Street and Wolverhampton, because it's so urban. But you know, it's a busy old section around here as well. Plenty of industrial units, and then when we get to Birmingham International, we'll be right alongside Birmingham Airport and the NEC, of course. So this now is Tile Hill. These neutral sections certainly keep coming up in quick succession. Of course, needless to say, I'd love this section to be done on Trainson World 5 and various other bits of the West Coast Main Line as well, really, but I think that's one for the future. We need other routes as well. What about the motors winding down as you go through the neutral section? So Berkswell. And I think it's kind of considered that what you have to do as a driver is to make sure that you cut the motors before the neutral section. I think it's considered really bad form to leave the power on, because it'd be very rough riding. Bit hit and miss with me, because I've driven through many a neutral section where I haven't observed that. So the suggestion there, we've got a double yellow, so we need to put a bit of brake on, because at the moment we could get held before Birmingham International. Because we still haven't got through Hampton in Arden yet. The timings for the Friday charter reasonably generous, it has to be said. And I know you're always hoping as a driver that the general advice is that you need to kind of coast up to the signal, because if possible, passengers prefer to be moving, even if you're only moving slow. Because reasonably often that happens and the signal does actually clear before you get to it. And as I'm sure we talked about many times, the idea is that you don't make sure that you don't go into the red area on the amp meter there. I do find, and I don't know if it's just me and not being totally used to the controls on the Trains and World 5 version. I love driving the 87 on Trains and World 5, but I find the notching up process a little bit smoother on this Trains and Classic representation. I'll tell you what's a strange thing as well. I don't think in all the time I've owned this route, I don't think I've ever stopped at these stations between Coventry and Birmingham New Street. So do we get a glimpse of the signal ahead of us? Yeah, we do, and we are indeed okay. So this is Hampton in Arden. Just about remember Birmingham International coming into being because of the opening of Birmingham Airport and the NEC. What time are we due out of? Oh, we're not due out of Birmingham International until 1901. So we are going to be on time, that's for certain. Now I have got a version of Train Sim Classic loaded up that's in async keys mode, so I think probably, unless we get held up for ages getting into the platform, which is entirely possible as things stand, then I might async keys it at Birmingham International. Yep, we've got the feather now, so I think we are signalled into the platform. It's kind of nice to get kind of a view like that, because you can notch up and see the meter at the same time, which is exactly what the driver would be able to see in real life. We're coming into platform 2, so whether we have another service that has priority over us, we'll only have to wait and see. I know there is a signal, according to the briefing at Birmingham New Street, that we might have to tab to get into. In terms of passengers waiting, there's nobody, is there? But kind of probably is semi-realistic for what the Friday charter was, right, because unfortunately it wasn't massively popular. Let's get the doors open. So that's the back. You should, I always feel as though that you should turn down the motors at that point. So Birmingham International feels quite right, and I love the kind of the multi-story and the various bits and pieces that are in and around. I mean, it's all fairly generic, but gives you the feeling. And you've got some planes here. That very famous Plain Airways. It's kind of supposed to be a take on British Airways, I suppose, without using the branding. And then we do at least have a runway, or a kind of a representation of the runway anyway. Of course, then on the other side we've got the NEC, and actually we should have the that light rail thing as well, which connects the station with the airport buildings, but I don't think, well, I suppose it's kind of there, I suppose, but it doesn't quite do it properly. And then this is always something, I'm sure this could be fairly easily fixed, but there is a direct connection between the station building and the NEC. You don't need to walk down onto the street, so it's a shame that that isn't included. So how are we doing for time? Oh, we're ages away here, aren't we? So let's control sync async keys, I should say. Because what time are we due away? Did we say 1901? I don't want to burn me dinner, you see, that's the thing. I've got it cooking away in the oven, and I've worked out that I've just about got enough time to record this video and get to Birmingham New Street. Driver, you'll need to press Control and Tab to clear the faulty red signal approaching Birmingham New Street. Okay, understood. I mean, that to me is the classic sound of a old AC electric. That sound of the motors, the blowers going into effect. Go, we can ease back, or ease off the power I should say now. Once you get beyond a certain speed limit, or certain speed, sort of above 40 mile an hour ish, you should be pretty much okay with the amp meter. So I've kind of put it up into full run up area, thinking it's not going to go into the red from here. Marston Green is the first station after Birmingham International, then Lee Hall, and then Stetchford. Marston Green's a kind of a good place to leave the station and get views from an airport spotting point of view. There's a great channel, somebody who stands at the end of the runway at Birmingham Airport, and you kind of had a head-on view of them taking off and landing, which is very good. And he's been known to stand out in all weathers when it's been absolutely freezing cold and it's been foggy, all sorts. Occasionally it's been nice weather. Quite a short stretch between Birmingham International and Birmingham New Street. So that was Lee Hall. Stetchford next, and you'll notice that because the line diverges away, it's a kind of a way of avoiding Birmingham New Street. So if you've ever been on one of those Sunday services where you have gone via this line rather than the Trent Valley line, but you've not gone through Birmingham New Street, then that's most likely why, because you've diverged away at Stetchford. A lot of freight trains go that way as well, and it kind of emerges the other side just north of Wolverhampton. And kind of you take in Walsall and Bescott Yard as well if you were to go that way in real life. Again, that's another little section I'd love to see in Trainson World. So there's only Waterorton, Adderley Park, and then Birmingham New Street. So we're nearly at Journey's End. And the fact that we've got the 65 speed limit reduction as well indicated on the map below tells you that we are on the approach to Birmingham New Street. So I hope you could join me for when I do part 3, the section between Birmingham New Street and Crewe. I mean, it's not guaranteed to be next week yet, we'll kind of see, but I'll have a think about it depending on what else comes out in between. I hope you've enjoyed this reasonably short video. Cross-country Voyager passing us. Are we supposed to call them Voyagers now that they are in the hands of cross-country? Kind of a Virgin brand name really, wasn't it? Of course, in real life you've got all the works going on alongside here for the HS2 line. Then we've got the Cross City line, which just joined us from overhead. That's one of the routes that's available for both Train Sim Classic and Train Sim World. Yeah, you've got some roadworks going on, I suppose, or train works we might call them, with the HS2 development. Construction works is probably a better word. Oh yeah, it was Control and Tab, wasn't it? So we aren't passing the signal at danger. And besides, if you ever have those 2 white markers at the bottom, then that feels okay anyway. I don't know if it's completely accurate from a signalling perspective, but it's okay. We are going quite a bit downhill, so just trying to control the approach to New Street. And again, although it's fantastically represented in Train Sim World with the Cross City line, unfortunately you don't get any other trains to go with it. It didn't tell us there was a 10 mile an hour here, did it? Love to see Cross City line reimagined with the Pendolinos and the 350s, and who knows, maybe at some point the 769s as well. Wasn't quite so sure about that passenger's movements there. I think he might have had a couple of pints today. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. As ever, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for all the existing subscribers and the support for the channel. Really appreciated. And if you haven't already done so, then please like and subscribe. Hit that notification button as well, because it'll give you details of upcoming videos, upcoming streams. The streams is usually 5 o'clock on Sunday, and I've got an idea of what's planned for Sunday, but I'll keep it till Sunday, and I'll kind of give a little post usually about 1 o'clock, something like that, on Sunday, just to tell people what's coming up. Part 3 of the video will take this on to Crewe, fingers crossed, from the same platform. So there we have it. That was today's train simulator run, today on Train Sim Classic. Thank you very much for watching, and from Power Flower Trains and Planes, for now, it's goodbye.